This is Eddie Hearn, Matchroom Boxing. You are watching Sporting Icons. You don't need to be anywhere else.
Okay, so following quite a few rumours about Eddie Hearn and Sky Sports going their own separate ways, so as Eddie Hearn Matchroom will go exclusively with DAZN for all its content. Sky Sports post live without Eddie Hearn. So I kind of addressed that in the video yesterday. Again, just a rumour until anything is official. That's all we can call it. Purely a rumour. Now, I decided to do a poll here on YouTube, and of course I have to use the community section, and the way for you all to see the poll and take a vote is if YouTube recommends it to you. For whatever reason, the algorithm's not quite what they once was here on YouTube when it comes to the community section. Hopefully going forward they sort it out, so not many of you actually get to see it, but I'd rather do it here on YouTube even with those restrictions than do it out on social media such as Twitter, for example, because out on Twitter anybody, any man and his dog can take a vote even when they're not boxing fans. At least I'll do it here on YouTube. I know 100% there are boxing fans taking the vote. So either way, just under 2.8 thousand of you did it within a 18-hour period, so thank you very much. Again, YouTube does not recommend them for whatever reason it may be, but either way I can get a pretty good overview of what it is that a lot of boxing fans are thinking. So the question that I gave you was, what should Sky Sports do if Eddie Hearn goes exclusively with DAZN? The options I gave you are as such. 23% said bring in another main promoter. In other words, just replace Eddie Hearn with somebody else. 29% of you said bring in several promoters. 19% of you said Sky Sports should quit boxing. 7% of you said just show the live cast from abroad, such as ESPN, Fox Sports, Showtime, etc., etc. And 22% of you said do a total restructure of the whole Sky Sports boxing team. So we'll start off with the final one, the total restructure, what people are talking about here, and I've been hearing it for a long time now, especially during this lockdown period, is the overly biased commentary. Now, I think most people understand, and I certainly understand it, that at the end of the day, Sky Sports, that's their business. What they're going to want to do is attract more people to return for next week's show, for the show in 2 weeks' time and whatever else. What they're not going to want to do is sit there and go, man, this fight is absolutely rubbish. Who the hell wants to pay to watch him? He's not very good. She ain't very good. People don't want to hear that because all that's going to do is put people off and go, yeah, you're right. What am I watching this for? I don't need Sky Sports anymore. Bin it off. So you are going to need a certain level of bias when it comes to it, as in promotion of certain fighters, but it needs to be calmed down a bit. It needs to be calmed down a bit, and they should call it how it is. We see it too many times. You hear, say, Adam Smith and especially Matthew Macklin will talk about how great one fighter is and only talk about, oh, look at that combination, oh, look at that right hook from that one specific fighter. But the other fighter, when they do the same thing, they don't say a word about it. It's overly biased commentary team. Matthew Macklin, in my opinion, he could well be a very nice guy. I don't know. I've met him once. But his commentary is overly cringeworthy bias. It's too far. Too far. So a total restructure is what a lot of people are asking for, including the punditry team like, I don't know, Johnny Nelson and Carl Froch and Anna Woolhouse, etc., etc. Now, for me, I don't mind Johnny Nelson and that. I think he's quite quirky. I like some of his views. He makes me laugh, to be honest with you. Yeah, Carl Froch is very plain Jane, that's for sure. He's very boring, almost like he doesn't want to be there for some reason. But either way, we'll have to wait and see. And for Sky Sports to continue in boxing, which moves on to quit boxing comment, there 19% of you, a lot of people seem to think that Sky Sports without Eddie Hearn, there's no point to it. You might as well just quit boxing because you're not going to compete with Eddie Hearn, Matchroom and DAZN. What's the point? Starting again, who could possibly replace Eddie Hearn? That seems to be the mentality. For me, I totally disagree with that. Now, I do think Sky Sports should quit boxing if they're just going to put out just regular content. If you're just going to put it out just for the sake of putting it out there, don't bother, just quit. For me, the plan going forward, it should always be about ad hoc, which is you plan to outdo your competitors. They should be looking at Eddie Hearn, Matchroom, DAZN and going, right, we are not only going to rival you, we are going to do better than you. All this time, people have been saying how great Eddie Hearn is, and by the way, we wish him great luck and all that kind of thing. But there is life without Eddie Hearn. The reason that boxing is rife is because of our platform. That's the way Sky Sports should be looking at it. Okay, so for me, I don't want to see them quit boxing. If anything, I want more and more broadcasters to start putting on boxing. The more channels that are putting out boxing, the better for us. I would love to see BBC get more involved, ITV get more involved. I want to see more and more and more. I'm a very, very greedy boxing fan. Now, 7% of you saying how should just show the live cards from abroad like ESPN, Fox and Showtime or whatever else. Yeah, people don't really want to see that. And to be honest with you, I kind of knew that anyway. I mean, ESPN, they're pretty much with BT Sport anyway, due to the connections with Frank Warren and Bob Arum. So you can pretty much rule them out. But when you look at, say, the PBC shows with Fox and Showtime, let's be honest, they are complete trash. Do I want to pay Sky Sports? Again, me, like many people, I only have Sky Sports for the boxing. I'm a big football fan, of course, but my team, Newcastle United, they're like 3 or 4 minutes drive just down the bottom of the road. What do I need Sky Sports for? Without boxing, what do I need it for? So for me, if I don't start getting good content, if they don't start delivering the product that I'm paying for, then I've been off Sky Sports. I'll be brutally honest about it and just go with DAZN and BT Sport. Okay? But hopefully going forward, that's not what the plan is going to be. As I said before, I want to see them rival. But nobody wants to be seeing the Fox Sports and the Showtime cards. They put on absolute garbage. They really do. Absolute pony. Once in a while, they'll pull out a pretty good event for sure. And even when they have good headliners, look at the undercards. Absolute dog shit. Don't need to be seeing that on my Sky Sports. I ain't paying for that. Sorry, but I ain't paying for it. So sorry for those of you over stateside who do have to pay for Showtime and Fox, whatever, for that kind of boxing content. I wouldn't, especially with some of them pay-per-views at their prices. Anyway, so that's that one. So pretty much this leads down to bring in another main promoter, as in replace Eddie Hearn solely, or bring in several promoters. Now, very, very close, 29% and 23%. For me, I can agree with that one. Now, as far as bringing several promoters, I understand the method, which is Sky Sports will give several promoters X amount of fights per year. Let's see what they can do. Here's a bit of money. Let's see what you can do. But for me, like all promoters and whatever, they're always going to try and bicker among each other. That's going to be the problem. You're going to have, say, Dennis Hobson slagging off, Mick Hennessy, and Mick Hennessy slagging off Kalle Sauerland, and Kalle Sauerland slagging off Al Siesta and whatever else to try and convince people that their fight nights are better than the others' ones. What you don't need is division within your own section of Sky Sports. You don't need that. You need everybody singing from the very, very same hymn sheet. That's what you need. Okay, so I'm not against Sky Sports bringing in several promoters at all. Now, when it comes to promoters, what is it that people will automatically look toward? They'll look to the likes of Kalle Sauerland and MTK Global. Why? Because they're the ones who get the most promotion through IFL TV. That is why. But does that make them the best? No. Does it make them not good enough? No, of course not. But just because, say, MTK get a lot of exposure through IFL, or Kalle Sauerland gets a lot of exposure through IFL, that's because they do okay views. But again, if you look at the comment section for, say, Kalle Sauerland, and I say this with a heavy heart because I like Kalle Sauerland, the comment section is filled with what gear is he sniffing today. Does Sky Sports want that? I'm not too sure if they do. I'm really not too sure if they do. I don't know if Kalle Sauerland is on something. I have no idea whatsoever. But again, with Team Sauerland, Kalle and that, obviously being under the umbrella of Wasserman, how much creative control are Team Sauerland having, Kalle and Nissa? They're going to have to filter everything through Wasserman in order to get permission to put on the shows, and then that's going to have to be filtered through to Sky Sports, and there's going to be a lot of backwards and forwards. Things are going to get quite messy. Do Sky Sports want to go through that? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe they have an idea to eliminate a lot of that. Maybe. I don't know. When you look at MTK Global, again, if you look at their shows, a lot of their fights are complete mismatches. I'm not knocking MTK Global. I like MTK Global. But so many are mismatches. Virtually 99% of their opponents seem to be journeymen. Do I want to be seeing that? No. Why? Because it's a business for them. It is a business. Yes, they love boxing and they look after their own fighters. But again, that's the problem. They look after their own. They don't care about anybody else's. And that's going to be the problem. Sky Sports need to be a little bit more broad-minded than that. And especially with a lot of things that's going on with, say, Panorama and everything. For me, I have no idea if there's any kind of illegal activities with MTK Global. To be honest, I really couldn't care less. That ain't my business. But it's Sky Sports' business. And we know that they have been put on the golden contracts and that before. But surely Sky Sports would want to look at MTK and say, right, you've got some things to sort out. When you sort them out and everything's in the clear, let's talk. Because what happens if they give them a 2, 3, 4, 5 year contract and things go south? It ain't a good look for Sky. Sky Sports don't want their brand put up again on Panorama, do they? They don't want that. So maybe that's one way they're going to look at it. But there again, MTK Global, if they're given the platform and they're given them money, enough money, maybe they could do something great. Much like Team Sauerland. Of course, their product is mainly Germany. But for me, when you weigh up all these kind of things, what's the one thing that boxing fans look at? Well, if you look at, say, for example, the recent shows, things that have been quite successful. Matchroom have been very, very successful. The World Boxing Super Series have been very successful. Many world title fights we've had. Many good fight of the years. What's the one common denominator in all of that? A lot of people don't know the answer to that. Well, I'll tell you what the answer to that is. Al Siesta is that one. And a lot of you go, well, who's that? Now, the reason being is because Al, he's been very, very low key for a long time. And I've been shouting from the rooftop for the past few years that he should be given some kind of role. He should be given the opportunity, a platform, the money. Because look at what it is that he does without the platform, without the publicity, without the money. Just in this lockdown period, he's put on, about 10 shows? This is without money. This is without huge TV. He's managed to do that. The only people who's done more than him is Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren, again, because they've got the money and the platform. With the World Boxing Super Series, especially Season 1, I mean, people didn't really enjoy Season 2, but Season 1, people were giving, say, Kalle Sauerland the credit. He wasn't making these fights. You know who was? Al Siesta was. Do you know why Alexander Usyk and the likes of Murat Gassiev entered the World Boxing Super Series? Because Al Siesta convinced them to. It was him that was doing it all. But other people get the credit. When you look at Matchroom Boxing, so many world title fights, so many great fights have been put on. Look at the undercards. Al Siesta put them on. And like people go, yeah, but the Eddie Hearn shows, he put them on. No, he didn't put them on. Al Siesta put them on. He doesn't get nearly enough credit. And I think if Sky Sports, as an example, gave him the platform and the budget, imagine what it is that he could do as solo. It's quite frightening, really. It really, really is. And if anybody can and is ambitious enough to try and outgun Eddie Hearn, and I know Eddie Hearn's his friend and everything, but it's going to be Al Siesta. He's going to be the one that's really going to take Sky Sports to the next level. Now, the thing is, what is it that we've really noticed a lot, especially recently, which is, say, the Russians have been coming to the UK, the Europeans, the Mexicans, and it's been going on for at least a couple of years now, where a lot of these people, we haven't heard of who these boxers are. They'll be on, say, the Sky Sports Matchroom Boxing shows, and they're kicking the living shit out of our Brits. You're like, well, who the hell was that? We haven't heard of this person before. Well, clearly our Brit either didn't perform on the night or he's a hype job. And it's not because of the hype job, it's because, say, Eddie Hearn doesn't know who these foreigners are. He just looks at their box rec and goes, okay, then, well, they're going to be quite cheap to put on. And they're coming over and banging out our Brits. But somebody like an Al Siesta, he knows who these foreigners are. He knows who these Russians are, who these Europeans are, who these Mexicans are. With the international contacts that he has, he knows all of them. He knows their resumes. He knows how good they are. And one thing that he's been an advocate for a long, long time is 50-50 fights. He hates nothing more than a mismatch. He hates nothing more than biased judging, biased refereeing. He hates nothing more than that. And on his shows before, when he has felt the judges are being biased, I'll tell you right now, those judges haven't returned. Very, very fair with it. Because at the end of the day, he knows the styles. He knows what styles work, which is why he's put on a whole heap of fighters, whole heap of fights. Look at Murat Gassiev. Murat Gassiev has a lot to thank Al Siesta for. He really, really does. But when it comes to 50-50 fights and mismatches, you see, this is what people, boxing fans, really, really criticise the Matchroom shows for. It's because you see the fighters that we know taking on somebody with hellacious records. Or they've got very, very pallid records from, say, I don't know, Ghana, for example. And they're coming over as like 19-0 or 20-0 and quitting in the first couple of rounds. Because everything's built up on box rec. which is something that Al Siesta just wouldn't like to do. But of course, it's not just the case of Al Siesta would do 50-50 fights each and every fight. Of course not. Because at the end of the day, prospects need guiding. And he's a huge believer in prospects, which is why I kind of get on very, very well with him. Because I have a similar mind that prospects need building at a certain rate. Of course, all prospects will come along and develop quicker than others. We understand that. But ultimately, it's a case of guiding them correctly. He's done this with so many fighters, but he really doesn't get the credit for it. He really doesn't. But as I said before, just a complete advocate for 50-50 fights. He wants 50-50 fights. First and foremost, he's a boxing fan, not a businessman. He's a boxing fan. But how do you create enough money to generate through boxing fans? Well, you put on good fights so they keep on returning. That's the only way to do it. You can talk the talk all you want, but if you don't walk the walk, boxing fans will walk away. Now, I know people say, but he's Russian. Do we want that? Well, he's Russian, but he really, really supports British boxing. He's based down in Southampton. He puts on shows in Bracknell and all that kind of thing as well. He's multilingual, so the contacts that he has, but he's very, very passionate about British boxing. It's progression, all of it. He's fully involved in all of it. So for me, I think that Al Siesta is definitely the right kind of person to take over from Eddie Hearn. And again, Al Siesta, he will work with other promoters. He will come up to the Northeast, look at Mark Clazel and Phil Jeffries and say, you know what, I'm going to put a show on July, whatever it's going to be, in Newcastle with your fighters. And we're not going to be putting your fighters in with journeymen. If you've got anybody who's like 15 and 20 and 0 or something like that, I want to see them tested. In fact, I'm actually going to bring in some fighters to beat your guys. That's what you need, to go to different territories and challenge all of the other promoters. But of course, ultimately, say, for example, he comes to Newcastle, to my city, with Phil Jeffries and Mark Clazel and goes, you know what? Yes, okay, this is going to be a Sky Sports show, but this is your show. You take front and centre. I'll be there with you, of course, but this is about you. This is your time. This is promotion for you and the Northeast. This is the kind of thing that Al Siesta does. And I've seen him a few times up here. He's got a very good relationship with many, many people up here, along with many boxers. And again, I mean, a lot of it, which is kind of weird to say, is that it's one thing to have a good relationship with boxers and people within boxing, but you need a good relationship with the fans. And to have a good relationship with the fans, what's one of the things that you do? Well, you need to be quite appealing on TV. I don't know, as far as guys are concerned, I mean, it's not my cup of tea, shall we say, but he's quite a good-looking guy. Because the last thing in the world that you want, which is what I mean by that, is, say, Richard Poxon looking back at you. Do you know what I mean? You don't want that. When you're looking on TV, on boxing, going, damn, he's ugly. No disrespect to Richard Poxon, although it's going to come across as quite very disrespectful. But you understand what it is I'm trying to say. And that's something that Sky Sports we've definitely got to look at. He's a very good talker, and I mean, look at all the fights that's been going on around the world and everything that he's involved with. For me, I think Al Siesta outdoes them all, but he just doesn't get the credit. He doesn't bullshit it. He tells it how it is. Boxing is first, business is second, but business does well with him, especially in like Russia and Latvia and all the kind of places that he has been putting on shows, because the fans respect it. They respect the fights. They come away going, that was a hell of a fight. How often do we really get to have that here in the UK? And that's something that Sky Sports really, really want, is that they want boxing fans to walk away from their show and go, wow, what about this fight? What about that fight? That was a cracking fight. Well, that's what it is that Al Siesta tries to deliver. Of course, you can't guarantee it, because some fighters will stink out some places on some nights, whereas they'll do really well on other nights. Again, when it comes to media as well, Eddie Hearn currently, he has IFL, and he allows IFL to corner the market. Nobody else really gets a look in when it comes to IFL. I understand these guys have like a lot of history. IFL have put in a lot of groundwork, but people just don't get the opportunity to grow themselves. They're not allowed to. Whereas Al Siesta wouldn't allow that. I promise you, he would not allow that. If you've got a channel out there and you want to go to one of his shows, you'll be more than welcome. You want to interview the fighters, you're more than welcome. It's all about fan interaction. Again, with fan interaction, look at, say, Eddie Hearn. Look at, say, Frank Warren. You drop them a comment on social media. See if you get a reply. You won't. Or very unlikely you will. You may get one maybe once in a while from Frank Warren. You may just get the message saying you're blocked, maybe. But Al Siesta, he does respond to people. He does do that. So for me, I think that El Siesta is the right person. And you give him the kind of finances and all the things that we moan about with the current product that Sky Sports have given us when it comes to boxing. A lot of that's going to change. But again, who knows? The only way to really know for sure is to give somebody like El Siesta the reins. Say, right, okay, here's a 3-year contract. Spend the first 12 months. Let's bed in. Okay, let's build the foundations. In year 2, let's start seeing some rewards here. For me, I say, personally, give El Siesta the job right now. Well, I say right now, if Eddie Hearn goes, give El Siesta the job. That's my thoughts. You drop me yours. Click thumbs up, subscribe. Catch you all in the next video.